Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Addiction Free Naturally podcast. And today it gives me great pleasure to welcome Lynn McDonald, who is, I'm going to read this bio because it's just so fantastic, I don't want to get it wrong. But Lynn is a music industry executive turned life coach and certified hypnotherapist. She converted from a corporate control freak, her words, into a self-proclaimed spiritual geek. She's actually had a really illustrious career in the music industry, and in her words, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll were prevalent. So I'm going to turn over to Lynn now and allow her to introduce herself. And it really is a pleasure to have you on today, Lynn. I really appreciate you coming on for my listeners.
Thank you so much, Graeme. I'm so honored and privileged to be part of your audience and what you're doing for the world with your podcast and your business and helping others free themselves from this addictive behaviors. About me, other than what Graeme just said, yes, I spent 30 years in the music industry, and I felt like after a while, I had to like grab a handle on myself. Drinking was a pattern that was just part of the lifestyle, is acceptable, if not mandatory behavior. Every day we would have concerts and dinners and parties and activities that were all surrounded, if not the, main focus was alcohol or some kind of partying, like a party. So while it was incredibly fun, like a really fun career, and just so much involved in exciting and the personalities that I got to work with, but at the core of it all, I didn't feel comfortable with where I was going in that direction of my daily drinking habit. So
okay.
That was something.
When did you notice that? I mean, how long ago did you decide to really address that issue?
It's funny. I mean, it was a whole lifelong thing. If you think about it, like when you asked me earlier, how did it start? So growing up, teenager years, 16, 17, in an Irish Catholic neighborhood, that was just what we did. Oh, we're going to go out and drink beers on the weekend, whatever. A lot of it was weekend activity all the way through college. And then I moved to LA and got in the music business, and it turned into every night because I was going to concerts like every day. So it was a long time. I mean, I'm 57 right now, and I just...
But you only look 30.
Oh, thank you. And I just got sober two plus years ago, just a little over 2 years ago. It was July of 2 years ago. It's now August. So, yeah. So it took that long. I have kids. I'm a single mom. And I think what's something to note is, how do you know when you're over the top? Like, I never got to a point where I hit a rock bottom where it was like, oh my God, I got a DUI. No. I couldn't pay my bills. No. I couldn't function in the world. No. Like, none of those things happened. So there's this gray zone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I drink wine every day. It happens at a specific time every day. Wine o'clock, I called it. It was something that I just, could not not do. And in the process, it was like, oh my God, when am I an alcoholic? I don't know. I honestly can't sit here and go, am I not? But I guess it's personal for everybody, to decide if this is what they think it is for you.
So what's the real thing that made you decide that you needed to change then, Lynn?
Well, it was how I was feeling.
Right.
When you're like feeling like absolute dog do every day, you wake up with a headache, you feel sluggish, your brain fogged, you don't have energy to deal with yourself, And then the brain battle begins. That was the one that was the most prevalent for me, was the brain battle of, okay, I'm not going to drink today. I'm just going to, when 5 o'clock rolls around, I'm just going to not do it. Okay. Then 5 o'clock, okay. Okay, I'll just have one. And then you roll into 2 glasses of wine. And then, okay, all right, you're pissed at yourself. So you just have another one. Then, all right, tomorrow I'll do better. And then, it rolls into this whole thing. It takes up so much energy. You're like, oh my God, well, I'll wait till Thursday. No, I'm only going to drink on the weekends. It just it's incessant and it doesn't stop. It's all this energy that when are you going to go? When's the next time going to be? Do you like feel that way for yourself? It was like, I
think we lost you for a second there.
Control the brain battle.
Okay, you've come back. We lost you for a second. You were saying you couldn't control the brain battle.
Yeah, that was the most frustrating thing ever.
And how did that make you feel?
It makes you feel helpless.
Right.
Like you have no control over yourself.
So what did you do about it? What steps did you take, Lynn, to get out of that fog?
Well, there was what didn't work. I tried a lot of things that didn't work.
So what was that? What didn't work for you?
Moderation.
Okay.
That didn't work. Moderation doesn't work. Thinking and it's going to be gone. It's like none of that. Moderation doesn't work. For me, it didn't. I mean, people can say it does for them, but I don't believe that.
I think in general, moderation is very, very difficult for people to do, because when you're in that zone, when you're just allowing yourself a little bit of what you're trying to give up, you're always going to pull back in, aren't you? I mean, I never understood the term. I remember meeting an alcoholic probably 30 years ago when I was in corporate, and I remember him saying to me he was one drink away from being an alcoholic. So he'd quit for 10 years, and he said, I'm just one drink away. And I never understood that. I wasn't an addict at the time of any sort, and I never understood that comment. But that comes back to your moderation, doesn't it? You can't do it.
It's willpower.
Yeah.
And willpower is finite. It's like a battery. You only have so much in a day, and then you lose it. So in order for me, it's just a slippery slope. Moderation is a slippery slope. And from what I understand, just in all the spaces that I've been in since my sobriety, I don't see that it works for anyone. And so that was the one thing. I mean, I quit for 9 months when I was pregnant, and that was easy. But I think it was a whole chemistry thing too. It was like,
so what? So you think it was chemistry? Was it deeper than that? Why it worked for you?
I don't know, because when you're pregnant, your whole body composition changes, and I had no desire. Like, it was repulsive to me.
Right.
And it could be like a blessing, that you just you shy away from things that aren't healthy because it's a higher purpose. You're bringing children into the world. So it was so easy.
I think that's because you had a powerful why. You was clear. Once you know why you want to do it, and I think that's another reason why I see so many, addicts where they are being told to stop their addictive behaviors by maybe a partner, but until they want to do it for themselves and they know why they want to do it, they're not going to do it. So that's
why interventions, I wonder if they work. Just because you're first of all, you're going to this person and they feel like they're being bullied by everyone around them to change. And it's kind of like, let's talk about an overweight person. right? It's kind of, you don't need everybody around you going, you need to lose weight or you're going to die.
Mm. We're losing you again here, Lynn, I'm afraid. I'm sure you'll come back in a second. The internet, how we love technology, eh? Well, let's just bear with this for a moment. I'm trusting Lynn's going to reappear at any second. In mid-sentence. We're just right away the time. So what Lynn was saying there was obviously moderation didn't work for her, and that's been my experience of watching clients that, you know, they find it difficult to reduce their intake, whatever. Oh, we've obviously lost Lynn completely now. I hope she can reconnect in a minute, so I'm just going to carry on for a second. They had trouble, clients had trouble moderating, reducing their intake. It's like you've got to do all or nothing. And when you make that decision, when you go all in, when you're 100% committed, when you're 100% responsible, then you actually overcome your addiction, you know, can really eradicate it forever. But when you're trying to, Lynn's back, brilliant. I can't hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can now. Excellent.
Okay, so we were talking about just
moderation. You were saying moderation didn't work for you.
Yeah, and then we were talking about just how intervention, when people are surrounding you, telling you you have a problem, and then how you feel defensive, you know, that would be something that, again, the key to all of this is compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what worked for you? Just going back, you just said what didn't work. So how did you start to get on the path that helped you get sober, clean, whatever term you want to apply to it?
Alcohol. I like to call it alcohol free.
Okay, alcohol free. We've all got different terms, and obviously I'm appealing to any addict here, so I always use different terms.
I think what happened for me was, it was like, all right, it's a decision and a line in the sand. I finally said, I am done. Done. And then I was like, okay, now how am I going to stay on this path and what's going to help me? And I'd heard about hypnosis through a program that you and I did together, TCP, transformational coaching program. We learned about hypnosis. And I thought, you know what, if that's going to be the path. So I sought out a local hypnotist here, worked with him, and then there was an online program for women called the Sober School. So I did 6 weeks through the Sober School, which was really enlightening. Her name is Kate B, and it was really enlightening because she also went through TCP, which I didn't know, years back, or like in the first rounds of when Jim Fortin was providing us with that amazing service. And so I felt aligned with it when I just, like, you know, when you're Googling, like, how do you get help, or how do you whatever, it just popped up all the time. And I was like, okay, there's the message from the universe that I need to, like, you know, see what she's up to. And what she really addressed was the marketing around alcohol and how it's like the norm, you know.
It's like socially acceptable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's everything, you know. Even in fitness, there's this stuff called Fit Vine wine. It's like, oh, you work out and then you drink this wine with less carbs, you know. It's like crazy. It's crazy.
Just rewinding slightly, I mean, you had even said that when you was in the music industry, that it was almost mandatory. It's almost like you was expected to drink. You know, so it's like you were being conditioned, really. It's like it's not only just socially acceptable, and we got to remember alcohol is a poison at its core, but you know, like you was almost expected to drink to be part of the group, to be able to progress in your career. So
I mean, I was 30 years that I was there. So
Yeah.
in the early years, the late 80s into the 90s, it was definitely, I mean, a lot of them have gotten on the sober tip since then. Not ironically enough, but a lot of the artists that I worked with are now sober.
Right.
But back in the day, that was, part of the lifestyle. Like I
Yeah.
call it it's a lifestyle, it was a lifestyle. It's not, and I'm sure that it's part of any kind of business. If you think about, go even back to Mad Men, that TV show back in the 50s or 60s, when they're drinking martinis in the office in the afternoon, like this, the 3 martini lunch or whatever they were doing. And it's funny because when you think that they were all smoking back then too, and how smoking now is like this evil, like, ew, and because the marketing turned to, causes cancer, you can't do this, when alcohol is more poisonous than most things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was definitely part of the lifestyle for sure.
And the crazy thing about drinking is, probably when we first had our first drink, many of us probably didn't even like that
Oh,
first
it
drink.
was
But
disgusting.
yeah, but it's like you have to fit in, so you like keep trying, so to speak. So it's like it's an illusion, isn't it? That's the word. The whole thing is an illusion, particularly
Agreed,
alcohol.
agreed. And I don't know. So getting back to what helped. So the hypnosis really, really was a life changing. And I think because what you have to do is you go to the root of the subconscious mind, and you got to get rid of the brain battle in here. And as all as it was is, what your brain doesn't know the difference between a good habit and a bad habit. It just knows that it's something that you do every day and creates this neuropath in your brain to give you an urge to repeat the behavior because it's something that you programmed your brain to do, right? So whether it's good or bad, the brain doesn't know, but every habit, good or bad, going to the gym or drinking too much, has a purpose, right? It has a purpose. And so the purpose can be, I'm punishing myself for feeling inadequate. I'm protecting myself from feeling out of place or like I don't belong. I'm trying to prioritize myself. So I don't want to drive tonight, or I don't want to be the one responsible for getting us to and from something. So if I drink, then I'm out.
So
Right?
let's just clarify something for the listeners, because I know many of them won't get this at this stage. I mean, what you're really saying there is addiction itself is just a symptom, isn't it?
Yes.
Addiction is not the problem. We think it's the problem when we're in it. But as you've just so eloquently put, there's a deeper issue that it's not readily known to us. We often don't know what that problem is, which is where you used hypnosis to get to the root cause of what the underlying problem of your drinking was.
Correct. And I think Dr. Gabor Mate has an amazing definition of addiction.
Yeah, I agree.
It says it's not a disease or a human choice, but an attempt to escape suffering temporarily, heal from trauma versus being in the pain.
Yeah.
And then it just creates more pain. Escape from the pain creates more pain. So not why the addiction, but why the pain.
I think that is so good that you brought him up. He's one of my favorites, without any doubt. And I think, we're touching on something here that so many addicts haven't heard before. And I won't say it's contentious. I mean, I very much believe in everything you've just said. I mean, that's really what helped set me free. But I think the majority of addicts, the only thing they've really heard is the 12 steps. And, the 12 steps is great. We've all got to do what is right for us individually. But, Dr. Gabor Mate gives you an alternate, doesn't he? is very much saying it's about the human suffering as opposed to it being a disease where there's no hope.
Yes. I don't want to undermine anyone who has chemical conditions that cause the disease, but in the grand scheme of things, my personal belief is the underlying core to any of these behaviors, addictive behaviors, whether it can be, social media, it's escaping something at the core.
Yeah.
That's the root of the problem to begin with. And typically it's feeling inadequate. It could be a trauma, a release from a trauma in childhood that you experienced, a lot of pain and suffering in any kind of childhood traumas. And Oprah's latest book that she did with a psychologist, I forget his name, but it's what happened to you, not why do you do this?
Yeah.
But what happens? What happened to you?
I think we're still caught up in a society in those stereotypical definitions of addiction, aren't we? We sort of see it's almost like the drug addict in some alley injecting something into them. It's like that's almost the stereotypical norm we've got for addicts, but that's not the case. And you used the word compassion earlier. Not only does the addict need to be more compassionate to themselves, but as a society, we need to look at addiction differently.
Yeah, when you think about what happens to an addict, they get punished. They get put in jail. So now they're isolated, right? And isolation causes addiction to begin with. We know about that rat pack experiment where you had one rat in his little heroin water by himself.
Yeah.
And he drank it till he died. Then the other rat park where there are like games and all kinds of little rats, nobody touched the heroin.
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, I spoke about that in actually my opening episode because I was given a quick summary of my story, and it was like finding out about Rat Park and about the Vietnam War, where actually 90% of Vietnam soldiers were addicted at the time. They come back and, America thought they was all going to be drug addicts. And within a short period of time, 90% had come off because it was all to do with the environment, which, as you adequately said, is the Rat Park experiment.
Yeah. So it's why do you think AA works? It's a community of support, right? So when you have people that are supportive of you instead of isolating you, condemning you, pushing you away, saying you can't get a handle on your stuff, it's more about what can we provide for these people in order for them to get out of the addiction. And the key element, in my personal opinion, is the hypnosis. Because if you're like, say you're gardening your garden, you got to pull the weeds from the root or they're just going to keep popping back up again. So go into the root cause, and it can be anything. It could have been, like I said, going back, regressing them back to where did they think the addiction started? And it's typically feeling like inadequate in some way. It's just an external adaptation to compensate for feeling inadequate. It's like, you can either go one way or the other. You can go, I'm going to, on the low end of the energy, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're doing things to make yourself feel bad, or on the high end of the energy, which again is workaholism, perfectionism.
I've been there.
Yeah. So it's more the sweet spot is in the middle.
Yeah.
From here in the heart, and learning about yourself and peeling back the layers that you've been numbing yourself from. And it's a feeling the feelings. And sometimes I wonder if feeling those feelings is worse than how you feel in the addiction.
Yes, I think in many ways you've summed up why many addicts never get sober, because, you know, you could argue getting sober to start with is the easy thing, but staying sober is the most difficult thing. And they're dealing with the sort of damage that they've caused before the addiction. So they go back into the addiction because that's the easy route.
Yeah.
So
But again, it's painful.
hypnosis was your key magic solution.
Magic solution. Because when you get to the root cause, it's like then you change the way you view it, right?
Mm.
You're like, oh, now it's so understandable now. I go, oh, right, that's why I did this. Okay. So you're understanding, you see why you did it, and then you go, why am I gonna like make myself like, if I had no judgment about my drinking, right? If I had no judgment about it, if I didn't say it was bad, how would I feel? Relieved. How do you feel when you don't drink? Relieved, right? So when you feel good, because I felt like I was like, oh my God, yay, this is so amazing. And now I want to share it with everybody. So I got certified to do it. And that's like the key. It's like once you get that brain battle, a handle on the brain battle, and eliminate the bad habit dialogue in your brain by using the hypnosis, and then, saying that, this is my brain just telling me this. And once the urge goes away, like a couple days later, seriously, then I was like, oh, then it's like, what do I do? What do I do at 5 o'clock?
And it can happen that quickly. I mean, you said the urges can disappear after a couple of days. I mean, I think, that we need to stress that is one of the powers of hypnosis as a strategy in addiction recovery.
Yeah, that's just it. It's the urge every day that causes you to continue the behavior, because the brain is just telling you to do what you taught it to do. Now we're reteaching it, and it really it does. Your mind does what you tell it to do. So when you shift the conversation, or you shift the pattern, or you shift the mindset, then you're like, oh, okay, it's just my brain telling me, this is my alarm going off. It's really not me at the core. It's just my brain. I trained my brain to do this, not me. I mean, it's my brain, not me, not the self, the me underneath, the core of me, my source. So it's just a habit that I've created, and I'm the one who created the habit. So I'm going to create a new habit.
That's wonderful. So let me just clarify again. You literally, how long did it take you to literally eradicate the drinking from your life, Lynn?
Well, I decided on July the 9th that I wasn't going to do it anymore. And I honestly feel like I had a week of bad days where I was just, did the hypnosis a couple times with my guy, Kevin, here. And then I was like, all right, so I know what the thing is. Now I just have to train the brain. And then after like a week, I was like, okay, I don't feel like this anymore. I don't want this anymore. And honestly, since then, and you have to understand, I was in like wine clubs, and I like, wine was my thing, it was my identity as a human. I'm like a wine person, that sip and swirl. That was me. I loved high-end wine. I was into like, oh, how's this pair with this food and all that, which is lovely. And it was fun, but that was like who I thought I was. That was my identity as like this wine connoisseur person. And then when
why don't you tell the audience about our subconscious identity, because that will sum it up. There's a brilliant quote by Maxwell Malt, which is, "You will never outperform your self-image," he says, which is the identity. But I'd love the audience to hear your explanation, because I think when they hear this, they will fully understand why they need to do something deeper than willpower, or the methods that they've tried and haven't worked, and why hypnosis can be so very powerful.
Yeah, when you think about your identity, it's who you are, right? So when you identify, I'm a fit person, I'm a healthy person, then you curate behaviors and beliefs that align with that identity. And then when you're, a wine connoisseur, that's my identity, And so it's kind of like, I like to equate it as a vegan vegetarian, right? If you're vegan, you choose, it's a choice. I chose now that I'm gonna not eat meat because of a core belief that, I love animals, I have this, these are beliefs, and beliefs are just thoughts you continue to think. Then you create a belief, then you create patterns around the belief, then you create the identity. So I'm identified as a wine, or back to the vegan. A vegan doesn't wake up every day, any day of the week, and go, I wonder when I'm going to have a hamburger. It just doesn't cross their mind. That never comes to their mind. Just like me, I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life. I don't wake up going, I wonder when I'm going to have a cigarette today. You just don't think about it anymore. So when you have the identity as a person that does the said behavior in the core by creating a belief through thoughts continuing to think over and over and over and over again. I love wine. Wine's my thing. This is it. I'm a wino. Da 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 da. And then my brain now says, "This is what you do." Then you've conditioned your brain to say every day, here's a pattern. You got, oh, this is when you normally have a glass of wine. So I'm going to tell you, we give you the urge to do it. And then you do the behavior. And then, so it's the identity of me. Now, when you go into the hypnotic state and you reprogram that subconscious and say, I have chosen not to do this. This is not who I am anymore. Then when you come out of it, there's that despairing, there's that synapse where you're like, I used to do this, but now I don't want to. And so then now I don't, it's just something that I don't even think about wine anymore, honestly.
And that's because you changed it at your subconscious level, your self-identity level.
Yeah, I don't identify myself as a person that does that behavior anymore. And when you don't have the identity, you don't even think about the behavior. Like I said, I would never think about smoking, or a vegan would never think about eating a burger.
So that's a distinction then, if I'm understanding you right, for the audience, that's a distinction by when you're doing something through, say, hypnosis, you're changing the subconscious, and you therefore, that becomes permanent. Whereas if you're just trying to do it by willpower to give up drinking or give up smoking, that's not going to last, because as you said, your willpower is finite like a battery, and you might do it for 2 days and you get to Wednesday, you think, I just have that quick glass of white wine.
It's crazy. And I mean, I'm fascinated by all of it. And I am so compassionate for people who can't seem to figure it out. I feel for them. And I know that the other side is so beautiful and easy and joyful, and it just changes everything. But to not have it, and it's that I'm not that person anymore, so I don't identify with the behavior. But if you continue to identify with that I am that person but can't do the behavior, then you have that resistance in the middle all the time.
I mean, that's why addiction is so painful, isn't it? It's like,
it's
you're trying to do it by willpower, you're batting, it's like batting your head against the wall. Nothing's going to change. It's like Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I battled with my addiction for years, and then I tried something completely different, which was around hypnotherapy, which is how we both gel, because we're both hypnotherapists. So
yeah. And in getting back to like, how do you reprogram the subconscious mind? Well, you have to be willing to kind of face the monster in a way. You know, you have to be willing to go, all right, it started here. And then, and typically it's frozen in time. Well, let's just say it happened, you know, when whatever, you can name any part of someone's life, you know, oh, I had this traumatic experience and I don't want to live that again. So I'm gonna disassociate myself with that experience, and I'm gonna numb myself through this addiction because I don't want to go back. But when you go back and you reparent that child or whoever that younger version of yourself was, that's frozen in this time, and go back with compassion through the help of a hypnotist and therapist, however you choose to you know, to address it, but it needs to be addressed in such a compassionate, loving way. And then when you say to yourself, that's just the person, that fearful, younger, you know, version of myself, that if I love her and have compassion for her now, and I see that she just did the best she could, then I go, wow, you know, I have such love
you're
for
like
her.
you're effectively like forgiving that person subconsciously in many ways, aren't you?
Yeah, you're forgiving the version of yourself that created the pattern.
Mm.
And you know, and it's all created for safety. If you look at it that way, all this rudimentary continuing addictive behaviors that are, you know, at the core not good for you, you know, destructive, you know, painful. But if you look at it at the core, is all you're trying to do is be safe with yourself from like addressing something you find larger, more scary than the addiction itself, which I ultimately believe is not true. I believe that once you can, through guided help, address that, and you see, oh my God, I've created so much more damage to myself with the addictive behavior than I did with addressing the issue at the core.
Nicely put.
You know, and a lot of people don't know what it is because they don't want to. They don't want to know.
Why do you think that is?
It's because it's scary. It's scary. You know, it's hurtful. You can feel it's the lowest vibration of feelings: blame, shame, guilt, like any anger, any of those things that are on such low vibrations. They don't want to go there. So instead, I'm going to numb myself to the feeling that, and I'm going to feel worse. Isn't that kind of crazy when you think about it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I just found it to be such a cathartic experience and delightful. Honestly, it was so fast. It's very fascinating to the degree that I just like, I could talk about it all day. I just love it.
Me too. I mean, I on the one side, I mean, as much as, well, I mean, addiction has caused me an immense amount of damage in my life. I've lost so much, but it's also been a blessing because I've learned so much about myself. And you use the word cathartic. It's like, it is cathartic when you start coming through it and, you know, repairing and uncovering all what's happened in the past. It is fascinating. And if only we all learn to use our minds, we've got so much more about us. You know, we can really step into our power, can't we?
100%. And the key: compassion, forgiveness, kindness, self-love. And I believe at the core, it's all about feeling inadequate in some way, shape, or form because of something that may have happened to you or how you perceived it to happen to you. Like, you know, mine isn't anything traumatic. You know, I didn't like go, oh, you know, I wasn't physically or sexually abused or any of those kind of things.
But
It was more about,
traumatic is also, it doesn't need to be anything. It doesn't need to be anything major, does it? Because someone, you know, I was like a shy soul, so it's like, therefore, being much more sensitive. It's like it doesn't need to be a massive issue that has caused that trauma. I mean, one of my clients, a porn addict, when we went into regression, what caused his porn addiction was he was shouted at by a teacher when he was 4 years old. He kissed a girl as a 4-year-old in like kindergarten or whatever it was called. And if you saw a picture of 2 4-year-olds kissing, you'd say, how cute. But because this teacher shouted at him, he took that on as a 4-year-old as doing something really bad. And that affected his ability to create relationships with females growing up. So he turned to porn. So it was like one event, and it wasn't as you said, it wasn't massively traumatic, but for him, it obviously was traumatic. So it depends on, the sensitivity of individuals.
Great. It's a relative to, you're right. It's absolutely relative to their model of reality.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to what you said about regression, just in case your audience isn't familiar with it. It's when you are in hypnosis and you revert back to like, okay, kind of peeling away onions again. It's what age were you, and what was the incident where you believe that is the root, pulling the root out of where it all started. So 4 years old, think about it. And how old is this guy now? He's been reliving this for most of his life. It can be anything. It can be something a parent said, a teacher said. It can be just one bad experience with a date, or with a feeling, or being ostracized or bullied, or any things that are just normal.
It comes down to the intensity of that particular event, doesn't it? It's like, yes. This guy, he's 26 now, so it's like we're going back 22 years. He's a 4-year-old, but because he was shouted at, by a person of authority, a teacher, kindergarten teacher, it's like he made that out to be bigger than it was in reality. But obviously, as a child, he was going to do that, or he didn't have obviously at 4 years old, you don't have the mental capabilities to mean it as anything other than you do at the time.
Right.
We all,
and then
we all
how
put
would
different
you start
styles
at think about it. Think about how would you shout at a 4-year-old? No. Like you said, you think it's cute, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you see so many pictures of cute 4-year-olds kissing. They don't know what they're doing, but
of course not.
Anyway.
Yeah. Again, perception, your model of what you think is good and bad.
I mean, I'm connected with addiction. One of the things that I've really got out of being a hypnotherapist myself is it's like, I'm glad I had my children all those years ago, because I realised the responsibility that parents have and how you talk to your children now. And you notice how parents do talk to their children. I mean, I remember an incident not that long ago where this mother was like telling her, the little boy was reading something off a poster, and the mother said, you're really not very good at, you're not very good at reading, are you, Tommy? Or whatever his name was. And it's like, I'm thinking, oh my God, you're programming this poor boy. And I'm guessing he was about 8, saying you're not very good at reading. It's like the responsibility on a parent is massive. And
it is.
Yeah, I'm glad I've done that bit, because when I look back, it worries me the damage that I would have maybe caused my own children. We've all done the best job we can, but I think the point is the words. In fact, what my mentor said to me, Marissa Peer, the words that we say to ourselves and the pictures we paint in our head are going to create our reality, and that is obviously true of when we're talking to our young children growing up. The pictures and the words that we say to them are creating their reality. So it's a massive responsibility being a parent.
It is. And I'm a parent later in life. I had my twins at 44. So, and I've been on a path of, personal growth and consciousness and everything. And I still feel like I jack things up every day. I feel like, oh God, what did I do now? And how's that gonna like taint them, you know, and their reality of what they think. But again, we also have free will, and we were all here put on the planet for our own personal journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I do believe that they chose me to be their mother for all of us to learn from one another. So hopefully I do a good job.
I believe you do. I believe you're a good mother.
Again, you do your best with what you know at the
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely.
When you know better, you do better.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is wonderful, isn't it? You know, it's like if you could go back in time with what you know now, but we can only go forward. We only have now and forward.
Yes.
So
true.
a question for you, because we're coming up to the hour.
Yeah.
If you could have done anything differently in your recovery, let's call it addiction recovery, because that's the general term people use. Before you found hypnosis has been your savior, but if you could have done anything before that, is there anything you would have done differently to maybe have speeded up getting there, to get into that point where you took it seriously and found, in your case, hypnosis?
You know, like they say, everything happens in divine timing. So I guess this was my divine time to figure it out. But I would have preferred to have figured it out sooner than later, like 20 years ago instead of now, you know. But again, we're on a journey. But in hindsight, I wish I would have done it 20 years ago, but I guess I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to learn the lesson.
Yeah, no,
so,
yeah.
So it happens in divine time, you know?
Yeah.
And divine time was 2 years ago for me. So.
And, the blessing, it inspired you to become a hypnotherapist as well. So now there's a ripple effect, because you're helping other people. You learned a great skill, which, you got you out of your addiction, but now you're helping other people on, multitudes of issues. So that's a blessing.
I agree. It's just a very purposeful way of living. It feels purposeful. And we're all here on the planet to be happy and to help each other. And I feel like there's always somebody, it's that whole, I have the perfectionism thing too, like, oh my God, am I skilled enough? Do I know enough? How am I gonna help this person? But there's always somebody a few steps behind you and who needs you.
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Is there any last words you'd like to leave the audience for them to think on?
Well, first, I'm super grateful for the opportunity, Graeme, and it's such a blessing to know you.
Seriously, it's been an honor having you on here. I can tell.
We clearly are meant to know each other, on opposite sides of the world. And I just think, I would love to help whoever is open enough to do it. You have to be open and you have to be willing.
Absolutely. You've got
to do it. And I think that's really important, that if you're open and willing to try something new and different, that might not be what everybody around you thinks is the way to do it, they're not living your life. So you have to do it for you. And I think that this platform, hypnosis, this modality of, help and support is life-changing.
Absolutely. Lynn, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on. I'm going to put Lynn's details below, so you can reach out to Lynn if you'd like to contact her for any of her hypnotherapy services. She's an absolutely wonderful hypnotherapist, so please do that. It's been an honor having you on here today. Thank you so much indeed. I know the audience will have loved you. You're a superstar, and it's been a pleasure to share your experience. I'd love to have you back in the future, because there's so much more we could talk about.
Oh my God, we can go down the rabbit hole.
We needed to keep it condensed, but thank you so much indeed. I really do appreciate it. So hang on there, because I will catch you in a second. But for the audience, please you can see Lynn's details below, and I will catch you on the next episode. Have a great day wherever you are in the world, but absolutely know that you can overcome addiction naturally, as indeed Lynn has just testified today. So don't give up hope, because you can absolutely eradicate addiction from your life permanently. Have a great day wherever you are in the world.